Good evening, fellow No-Shushers. Thank you for having me, and I am so pleased to be here with these other fantastic readers and presenters tonight. It's been a couple years since I was here last, and in that time, I've been keeping quite busy on the creative front, and you can enjoy some of the fruits of that labor after the salon. When I was last here, I'd made contact with someone who identified themselves as Mayor Jacob Muller. Since then, it has proven uncannily difficult to seize contact with him. I am, in fact, skeptical that this is indeed Jacob Muller, as he's been deceased since 1914. His communications are one way, that is to say, he contacts me when I'm approaching the village limits through a variety of AM radio frequencies. Today, when I was coming into town, the same thing occurred, with the so-called Mayor Muller giving me a message which he insisted was of the utmost urgency to convey to those in attendance tonight. Conductor is waiting for the time to be right. I think the waiting is nearly over. Conductor has their variegated sights set for the autumnal equinox and will usher in the return. Dear God, even in this form, they terrify me so, and no ritual will stop the dread terrors from creeping into startling manifestation. Ensure that the Office of Village Affairs has their copy of the manual at hand and secured. He also wanted me to remind you of this upcoming event. Midnight Picnic at Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Midlothian at 11:45 p.m. Saturday, July 11. Yes, under the waning crescent moonlight, among the strange stretching shadows of the tombstones, join us for a picnic that you will not forget. Refreshments provided by Waitland Organic Market and will include Waitland's Leper's Pie, Uncle Don's Cheddar Lemon Trifle, and their famous Greg's Surprise. A reading from Lucia Duran's book on Nighttime Fowl will be presented by the mysterious Dr. Whipthorpe, visiting from Nephilin University, followed by a rousing and dissonant theme performed by local legend Tomas Hedge on his fantastic osteophone. Parking on site will be $3 or along the dirt road for free. Follow the flickering torchlights to the picnic site and watch for open graves or the bodies that were previously resting in them. With those pieces of business out of the way, I do have some readings for you tonight from some of my most recent series of $5 books. This first is from Sasti Iatriki Kathadigisi, or Sound Medical Guidance. This is a collection of notes and observations that were recited by physician-philosopher Canidia the Ornery in his dying week, and they were transcribed by his apprentice, Jodonicus the eunuch. Whole story about how I got to this. This selection is from his Death Notes, and this is Death Notes 3, Panic and the Final Journey to the Canistra. Deep within Abyssinian mausoleums, erected millennia ago before humans first walked, guttering torch flames burn azure and reveal in the gloom a woman seated, holding an infant she calls man. I approach, the only sound my sandals upon the rock, and breathing, my own or the infant's I know not which. I am prevented from getting closer, some barrier invisible to me. The woman glows, her face wrinkled like parchment, eyes closed as though asleep, yet she is not. The infant is feeding at her swollen breast, rotten milk and blood pooling and congealing on his cherubic scarlet cheeks. The woman opens her mouth, and a sound emerges. It is identical to the agonized screams of my own mother as she expired on her deathbed, yet resonant, echoing in the cold chamber. "So born it too shall die," the woman hissed. The infant unlatching from its feeding as a mass of flesh swells, rises, and drops from her nipple with a splash and a skitter. "I cannot die yet," I cried, and the infant simultaneously spoke the same words, voice sounding even older than I. My robes are stained yellowing crimson from the multitudes of feedings from my mother, my sister, my daughter, who all step out of the shadows. their pale faces unsmiling, their eyes condemnatory of my waning life. The woman's head splits and a mandibled beetle crawls out. It grabs the infant's head in one of its arms and squeezes. The infant's cries of pain and hunger are echoed by me as I feel my head become compressed, nose beginning to bleed black blood. The infant she calls man, its head bursts as a melon dropped from a height, alabaster milks of various consistencies ejaculating over the beetle's maw and adding to my own ruined dressing. The beetle turns to face me, and it speaks in my mother's voice, saying, "Rejoice, as you shall not hunger for much longer, and you will join me here soon." From above, lepers' hands, gray-green with grave moss, descend and float like tiny lily petals, but hold me tight and still, one covering my mouth to stifle my screams. My dead family strips nude and walks in synchrony, holding curved daggers. I feel their blades pierce and slide through my skin, flaying strips they feed to the excited beetle. No aid from the gods come as I am summarily dismantled and portioned. The visitor laughs and laughs and laughs as he opens the door to the canistra, beseeching me to enter. Thank you very much. The next reading I have serves as a little preview of a project that will be coming out this autumn called When They Return. It's an anthology featuring work by myself and several other extremely talented authors, Matthew M. Bartlett, Tom Breen, Michael A. Cavanero, Matt Fitzsimmons, and Jonathan Robb. The anthology serves as a mosaic of weird horror, eerie sci-fi, and strange conspiracy theories. Many entries from the book are excerpts from the manual, which represent a variety of testimonies of various dubious nature around strange happenings. One of these, A Cabin in the Taiga, is actually written in Middle English, which I am no authority in and would not make for good reading. However, I do have a modern English translation, which I will present here for you. Liviet was out in the forest gathering wood for the fire when a green-yellow light streaked across the sky. A paltry education half consisting of tales from his grandfather Pyotr, he thought it was a strange sunrise, as the heavens were illuminated enough to cast shadows from the trees around him. He threw another log in the barrow and continued his gathering. Some time later, he looked up again, and the sky appeared to be sliced where the green-yellow light had streaked before. Now the sky seemed to be bleeding, like when his father Gregor slipped with the axe and rent a jagged wound in young Liviet's leg. Except that the sky seemed to be bleeding a bluish-black into and among the clouds. Liviet found this strange and intriguing and paused at his labors to consider this. He also noted that he had encountered no birds in his ministrations, and he knew that hawks favored the forest for its tall trees and plentiful rodents. No, the forest was silent and empty, and this worried him. Next he began the rain, a slippery, oily thing. Liviet closed his jacket and began to hack at a promising sapling with his aged hatchet. The thwacks echoed rhythmically with the falling of the rain, which was oddly unsteady. Then the smoke began to rise from the forest floor, and Liviet noticed that his jacket too was becoming covered with black burnt holes. Liviet made a noise of alarm and went for his hat to pull it down, when a hissing sound commenced. Rising from the ground were three-headed worms, blue-purple like bruised tubes writhing. They were the size of snakes, which Liviet feared after his sister Petra was poisoned by one several years ago. He started to run, slipping in the mud, and entozoans, which with malicious intelligence regarded Liviet and took chase. Meanwhile, the rain began to burn at Liviet's beard, hands, and scalp, raising welts and blisters that caused him to cry out. From all around him, the worms encroached, closing a circle around the burning man. Nearly blind now, bloody, steaming tears streaming down his face, Liviet fell among the wet earth, worms crawling all over his body. With a gasp of terror, one of the worms reared up like a cobra on his chest, its 3 jaws unhinging and revealing a set of orange fangs in 3 rows, with more spiraling down its throat. Liviet succumbed to this nightmare, and the worms began their feast. Thank you so much. And if you want information on pre-ordering a copy of When They Return, come see me after the salon. And you can purchase for $5 excerpts from When They Return from me along with other books. Lastly, I usually like to do a little audience interaction after these readings to make sure you're awake and present for the other readers. Rather than pick on folks individually, if I may ask, who here was born in the summer months, like June, July, August? How about winter, like November, December, January, February, March, April? Okay, looks like we should go with summer since it is the season after all. Please enjoy this zodiacal transmission from the Horned Frog of Asioth. Hop and heed the grail song from your steaming copper chalice. Attenuated somewhere in the Rialp galaxy, a star your astronomers named R89X7.2 blinks and winks, going dwarf than nebula. Streaming forth across the cosmic gulf, a repeating message of Hosanna, trick went knife, you drear, is translated by radio engineers in the South American Deep Space Radio Array in the year 2145. The broadcast is kept secret for 3 decades as scientists and linguists work to uncover its meaning. The broadcast text is then leaked by a temporary cleaning employee named Tom, who was then summarily arrested, tried, and imprisoned for his dalliance. Meanwhile, those who had been working on the message's meaning discover it is just the reflected radio broadcast from BBC Two in the 1940s, which has been blended by solar flares with a religious broadcast from the deep south of the United States circa 1962 and a Norwegian television miniseries from 1975. What the scientists and the linguists failed to note, failed to observe and investigate, were the subtonal skips and glottal stops that belied a true message from the stars, proof that there were intelligences unhuman that sought to open communication with Earth and its residents. These secret and extraterrestrial messages were heard and responded to by a rare breed of bee native only in the state of Argentina. These bees had acquired science and technology millennia ago and had carefully built their city hives into spots where no human could or would tread. That's my time. Thank you once again. Hope to see you after the salon, and I bid you a pleasant evening.